Senator Housakis, number 12.
Honourable colleagues, I intend to be a little bit shorter on this issue. The Haga Sophia Cathedral has long been a symbol of religious and cultural tolerance. The site draws over 3 million visitors annually, proudly symbolizing solidarity among faiths and cultures. However, the arbitrary transformation of Haga Sophia into a mosque earlier this year sends an ominous signal to the rest of the world, not only because the decisions impact on Christians in the region and beyond, but because of the horrible principles that this move clearly seeks to destroy. Over the past few years, there have been many reports about the rise of the Erdogan administration in Turkey and his gradual but definite dismantling of secular Turkish state. Erdogan's disdain for the West is abundantly clear, as is his regime's lack of respect for minorities and long-standing international agreements and laws. We are seeing it right now in Turkey's increased aggression against Greece and incursion into their international waters. We are tragically seeing it right now with their involvement in the Azerbaijani attacks against the Armenian people of Artsakh. And we saw it with Erdogan's blatant disregard for the World Heritage Convention that ensured that Haga Sophia status as a heritage site is protected and maintained. The Haga Sophia Cathedral, built in 537 AD during the reign of Roman Emperor Justinian, served as the Christian Cathedral Church of Constantinople in the center of Eastern Orthodox faith. It was the largest space of its time and is widely considered to be the most important Byzantine structure ever built. Indeed, the cathedral's design, particularly its dome, revolutionized architecture. Haga Sophia, or better known as Holy Wisdom, served its intended purpose for nearly 1,000 years until it was converted to a mosque after the war saw the fall of Constantinople in 1453. Ultimately, the founder of the secular state of Turkey, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, recognized the cathedral's historical significance as a monument to the Christian faith, architectural achievement, and artistic endeavor, transforming the site into a museum. Declared a World Heritage Site in 1985 by UNESCO, the Haga Sophia Museum has served as a symbol for religious and cultural tolerance until recently. As Canadians, we are fortunate to live in a great democracy that welcomes different cultures and faiths, one that encourages free thought and respect for others. The actions of the Erdogan regime should be of grave concern to us, as they not only defy its international obligations, but seem to be strategically designed to cause a clash of cultures. We are obligated, I think, to ask why. His government's actions may be linked to its eroding credibility after a series of highly publicized scandals in 2013 that witnessed the arrest of several of his closest allies, accusations of cronyism, and then a failed coup in 2016. After which Mr. Erdogan launched a massive purge of Turkey's secularists in the military, judiciary, and the media. The Erdogan government's decision to transform the Haga Sophia is clearly not an aberration, but part of a pattern that can only serve to heighten tensions amongst a wide range of groups in the region. Moreover, the callous disrespect towards a World Heritage Site might dangerously serve as an example to others. The concern and indeed outrage should be universal. As Canadians, we believe we can play a positive role in the world stage as a middle power and serve as a beacon for tolerance and respect. This belief is critical, but so is action to back it up. The leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada quickly and clearly stated the actions of the Turkish government were wrong and that the Haga Sophia Museum should not have been converted, that it must remain a symbol of religious tolerance and human rights as designated by UNESCO. Unfortunately, it's months later and still we haven't heard a peep from our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, or for that matter, leadership of other parties representative of our Parliament. The time for pictures and visits to podiums has passed, and while the current COVID-19 crisis remains our priority, our government is obligated to continue its functions, including the practice of foreign policy and the protection of human rights, which we Canadians hold dearly. At some point, principle must take over precedence and over photo ops. The Canadian government needs to demonstrate true leadership and pronounce itself on this matter, not to defend one faith over another, but in support of fundamental right to religious and cultural freedom and tolerance and respect. Colleagues, tragically, in recent weeks, we have seen that religious freedom continues to be under attack. We've seen innocents massacred at their places of worship in France and in Vienna. It's not enough for parliamentarians and governments to speak out and tweet only at times of these horrific attacks, but we must do so before it gets to that point. We have an opportunity here to speak out, to condemn Erdogan's arbitrary breach of international law, but also his egregious attacks on religious freedoms and religious tolerance of all faiths represented by Haga Sophia. Furthermore, these actions perpetrated by the Erdogan regime serve as an affront to the following principles of the Republic of Turkey. These principles were based upon Western values and were meant to bring the country into an international community of nations, allowing for dialogue and respect for basic human rights. Removing the symbolism of religious tolerance and peaceful coexistence from the Haga Sophia is a cause of grave concern for everyone. Internally, the decision has further exasperated divisions between the Turkish Islamist State and the secular groups within Turkey. Erdogan's aggressive approach has also fueled tensions between the Muslim majority in Turkey and the country's minority groups. Colleagues, we cannot turn a blind eye to actions like this. Each time we do, we cede our moral authority in dealing with human rights abusers and violators of religious freedom around the world. If we do not condemn these actions, it only serves to embolden regimes like those of Mr. Erdogan. Indeed, we see it in his increased aggression with Greece and Cyprus, and sadly in Turkey's direct involvement in Nagorno-Karabakh. Turkey's actions are not becoming, colleagues, of a NATO ally, and Canada should be reminding President Erdogan of his obligations under international law. And that's why I hope you will support this motion, colleagues. I hope, colleagues, we start recognizing that democracy is a frail element, that we should not be taking it for granted. And without democracy and freedom as the most essential ingredients to this society we have built, the Erdogan administration is not representative of the Turkish people. We have many Canadians of Turkish descent. Many are my friends. Many of them are my business partners. They're not proud of a regime of this nature. And don't mistake, by any means, their silence here in this country, on behalf of many of them, as being complacent or compliant to what this regime is doing over there. But tyranny is a difficult thing. Like many Canadians of Chinese descent, when they speak out against that brutal administration in China, their friends and their family get visits, as, for example, Madam Lin, a Canadian of Chinese origin, her family experienced that. So people of Turkish-Canadian background in this country, if they speak out freely, and they're not in this country because they believe in totalitarianism, they don't believe like their government does that they should be supporting the Muslim Brotherhood. They believe in religious freedom. They believe in coexisting with their neighbors and friends and fellow Canadians. I believe most are peace-loving people who want to embrace our freedom, our democracy, and the privileges we have. But I believe an institution like ours has to not bury our heads in the sand when we see regimes like that of Mr. Erdogan doing the egregious things they did in Syria, doing the unacceptable things they did now in Nagorno-Karabakh, and things they do in their own country. China, Turkey, Iran are in competition of who can put more people without due process in jail. These are countries that are in competition in jailing journalists who try to shed light on some of the impropriety that's taking place in these countries. We don't believe in that. We believe in the ability to stand up here and criticize our government. We think that's our inherent right. We think that's our obligation in democracy, because governments only survive if they can sustain the criticism of the media, the criticisms of institutions like the Senate and the House of Commons, for that matter. So I think it's incumbent on us, colleagues, not to give in to pressure. Understand that if egregious behavior like this by tyrants around the world are not called out by countries like Canada and countries like us in the Western world, one day we're going to wake up and we're going to be seen facing it face to face in your own backyards. Thank you, colleagues.